62 on the calendar in the matter of Lake versus McConnell. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated.
Mr. Lake, I am baffled by your lawsuit, so I am hoping, sir, that you are going to be able to explain to me why you believe that this young lady should give you $2,500.
As a consumer in a very aggressive area, retail grocery, as a consumer there where...
Why don't you tell me the story, sir?
The story is...
Yes, tell me about the lawsuit.
The lawsuit itself
Put your papers down, put your briefcase down, and just relax and tell me the story.
The story, which I have the physical evidence here, is that as a consumer, on Christmas Eve of last year, I entered with a companion at a certain grocery store in the San Diego County area. With that, and with my companion, we went through the cash-only line. My companion went first. She bought a couple of items. She was waiting right there on Christmas Eve for me to go through. Body language that she was ready to go, keys in her hand, tapping her foot. It was a very rush type of thing. I come in with one item in the cash line. I go ahead and confront the cashier with...
That's this young lady
yes,
here.
Yes, ma'am. A person now who I now know the first and last name of. At that time, she was wearing a name tag with just her first name and last initial. At that time, right here on the receipt...
You gave her your item. What did you buy, sir?
I bought one bottle of champagne.
Okay, you bought a bottle of champagne, and you gave her money.
Not only did I give her money, but before I gave her money, I said, I have two $20 bills and a 50.
But why would you say
Shut up!
Pardon me.
You gave her two $20 bills and a 50. And how much was the champagne?
You can see the attitude of
Shut
the
up.
store.
Hey, just a second. Mr. Lake, answer my questions,
yes,
please.
ma'am.
How much was the bottle of champagne, sir?
The bottle of champagne with the tax and everything else came out to $4.30. I asked Ms. McConnell, can you break a 50? I told her I have two 20s and a 50. She said yes. I handed her a $50 bill, a quarter, and a nickel, $50.30 for $4.30 purchase.
So what happened? Come on, speed
What
up the
happened
story.
was, with my companion waiting to go, rushing off work.
I heard the companion. What happened with the money?
Mr. Lake, I am baffled by your lawsuit, so I am hoping, sir, that you are going to be able to explain to me why you believe that this young lady should give you
counted out $50 in cash
$2,500.
as a account back. As a consumer, I grabbed it and the receipt, stuffed it in my pocket, and left. Very soon after,
aggressive area,
account, I had another
grocery,
cash transaction. I got out my cash. The receipt read clearly, cash tended $40.30.
Okay.
I went back within half an hour of making my purchase. I confronted her and I said, have you taken in any $50 bills recently? And she said, no. This is within minutes after the transaction.
Okay, so what happened? Come on.
What happened was that talking to various store officials, including one Dean Honda, and
you talked to people at the store.
Yes, ma'am.
And did you get your $10 back?
I got the $10 back after a lot of arguing, and I also got the corporate phone up here in LA County.
Mr. Lake, so you went in, you gave her money, you realized sometime later when you were making a purchase that she had given you, according to you, $10 less in change than you should have gotten. So
yes.
far as that, make it fast?
Yes.
You went back to the store. At first, they didn't think that they had made a mistake, but ultimately that evening, they gave you the $10, correct?
After a lot of arguing, yes.
So you had a lot of arguing, whatever. That evening, they gave you back the $10.
That's correct.
So why are we here?
On principle, she still has her job. She has not, to the best of my knowledge, been reprimanded, and the store has tolerated outright theft. This is not my opinion. This is physical evidence. They tolerated outright theft. It's not my fault that she wanted some kind of a Christmas bonus on her own as an individual employee. In an industry that, from the top, constantly cheats consumers through price fixing, that store managers constantly take items off of sale on their computers. We have, in addition to that, employees working on their own, taking money out of my pocket. The principle of the thing is we have theft, we have denial of the theft, and we have zero cooperation from the corporation.
Okay. Now, I have a couple of questions to ask.
Yes, ma'am.
How many lawsuits have you filed with regard to this particular incident?
One.
And this is the only one?
Yes, ma'am.
Never filed any lawsuits against her? Because she has a counterclaim against you for a variety of things, including abusive process, which is really the basis of your lawsuit, although you don't couch it in that language. She says that you've sued her at various times, and she'll tell me about that. You've also slandered her, which you did right now. You said she was a thief.
And I stand by that.
Mm-hmm. May cost you money, Mr. Lake. You understand that?
I stand by it.
Because now I'm going to ask you some questions. Then I'll get to you. Okay? Fine. It was Christmas Eve.
Yes, ma'am.
Store was busy?
Relatively so, yes.
And there were a lot of people online waiting, which is why you went to the cash line?
No, it was well staffed. They had a fair amount of employees waiting on people, so it was busy, but it wasn't real crowded, or there was not a long line.
Okay. And you came to her, and what you said to her was, I have two 40s or a $50 bill. Or two 20s or a $50 bill.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, why would you say you had two 20s if the whole champagne was only $4?
I wanted to know, in the cash line,
yeah.
You know, I went through the cash line because I had one item in cash.
No, Mr. Lake, you're not following me, sir. If I had a 20 and a 50 and I was buying a $4 item, I might say, can you cash a 50? I have a 50 or a 20. Can you cash a 50? You told me that you said to her, I have two 20s and a 50.
Because I had just pulled it out and I was looking at it and communicating right off the cuff at that moment.
So what you did, what you're saying to me, Mr. Lake, is, since you must agree with me that that was sort of a silly thing to say, I have two 20s to pay for a $4 item or a 50. I mean, that was kind of ridiculous, right? Mr. Lake, is that kind of ridiculous to say I have two 20s to pay for a $4 item or I have a $50 bill?
That's the items that I pulled out. That's the cash I had on hand.
Well, who cares what cash you had? What if you had a $1,000 bill? She doesn't care what cash you had on hand. You had a 20 and a 50. You could have paid with either one.
I had a couple
So
of
can
20s.
you say, did you ever say I made a mistake? Did you ever say that in your life?
Often.
Very good. Well, so you made a mistake. You should have said, I just have a 20 and a 50. Can you cash the 50?
Well, if I had more time, if it wasn't a rush situation, maybe I would have.
Now we're getting there, Mr. Lake.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Do I look like I need help?
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Shannon McConnell, a supermarket cashier, disputes Donald Lake's accusations that he was shortchanged.
So you made a mistake because it was rushed, because you were taking out your money fast, because you had somebody waiting for you, and there were a lot of people behind you waiting to get checked out. So you made a mistake. Why wouldn't you give this young lady, and I haven't heard from her yet, the benefit of the doubt? Why do you ascribe to her malevolence, criminal activity, when it could have been an honest mistake?
That's a very good question.
I'm waiting for your very good answer. Now you're taking time to think about it, Mr. Lake, because you're going to think about a good response to me.
I can tell you right now, two good responses.
Yes.
Response number one, she counted back $50, not 40, in her count back. Number two, a few minutes later, she denies ever having the $50 bill in the first place.
Okay,
And she said right then and there, oh, you know, if she'd apologized, if she would have helped me confer with the manager. I mean, up until I got the money back that night, she was fighting the manager. If she would have admitted her mistake, that would have been fine.
Mr. Lake, you don't think as a consumer you made a mistake by taking the money when she counted out the money and not looking at it? Not saying, I gave her a $50 bill, let me just check my change, instead of taking your change and just putting it in your pocket. Don't you have any responsibility to do that right at that moment?
Whatever responsibility I had with that, I took care of it as soon as possible.
No, you didn't. If you had taken care of it immediately while you were right there, you would have said, look, right, the bill right there on top, that 50 is mine. Instead, you walk out of the store after she counted out your money. Then you come back a half hour later after you've made another purchase someplace else and say, now, Christmas Eve, I want you to remember that I gave you a $50 bill. Hold it. Go.
From the beginning?
Well, if there's anything that he's left out from the beginning, I'd like to hear you.
Okay, when we went to the cash line, it was extremely busy.
How long have you been working at this store?
Since 1985. Not this particular store, for the company since '85. After I checked him out, I went on a 10-minute break. After I came back from the break, I went to another register. So when he approached me, he didn't ask me in a calm manner. He came up screaming a 20, a 10, and a 5, and a 1, saying that that's a change I gave him. Asked if he'd taken any 50s lately, being that I had just returned from a break, maybe 10, 15 minutes. I was on a new register where his 50 would have been on the old register, so I didn't recognize him from the prior exchange, because they had been so busy. I had hundreds of customers that day. I didn't recognize him, so I thought the only thing that came to mind was maybe he was wanting a nice, clean $50 bill to give as a gift. So I was saying, I don't think so, but I can check. And as I'm saying, I can check, see if there's one in the drawer. That's when he started going as 20, a 10, and a 5, and a 1. And then at that point, the manager came over to see what the commotion was about. The manager did not argue. I did not argue because I didn't know what it was about. The manager took the receipt, said, "You were short of $10. He said yes. He took him over to the courtesy desk. At that time, he just gave him the $10, no questions asked, really. It was a matter of minutes till he got his $10 back. And at that point, Mr. Lake took the $10, waving in the air, screaming, "Don't go through Shannon's line. She has my money. She'll take your money."
Did you do that, sir?
Not all of those things.
Yes, sir.
I did some of them.
Ma'am, this is Jackie here.
Were you there that evening?
Yes, when her and I came back from our breaks, just coincidentally at about the same time, she opened up on the register right next to me, and the way our register is set up is her customers' backs are to me, and my back is to them. Okay, so I heard a 20, a 10, real loud, and I turned around, stopped checking, turned around, and looked at Shannon, and then he goes up to the service desk with the manager and gets his $10. He has it in his hand, waving it. "She stole my money." I mean, Christmas Eve is the second busiest day of the year. I've been working there for 22 years. I've never seen anything like this before in my life, the whole time. And he was waving the $10, saying she stole it. The customers eventually, he was there for probably 5 to 7 minutes, yelling and carrying on in front of the store. So all of her fellow employees heard every check stand was open. All the customers were, it was very busy. Him saying it wasn't that busy, relatively. Anyway, so the customers finally started saying, "We don't want you here. Go back to where you came from. We like our store. We like Shannon." And he left. That's how it was. I saw the whole thing. I stopped checking to watch it because I've never seen anything like it.
Shannon, how many times have you been to court with regard to this case?
This is my third time.
Tell me about the first 2 times.
The first time I went,
You were served with a summons?
Yes. I went.
What was he suing for that?
The first time was criminal and commercial theft, deceit, and fraud. That was the first one. I went there, and Mr. Lake failed to appear. I thought that was the end of it. I thought maybe he realized that this was a ridiculous case, and that was it.
Which court did you go to?
San Diego, Claremont.
Does that sound familiar to you, sir, that you filed a case there?
Yes, it did, and she was not serviced.
Just a second.
There was no service done.
I was there when he served the papers, and you did serve her, and you stood behind her and watched her check for about 10 minutes after you served her. You served her personally.
Just a second. Just a second. And did you serve her?
No, I cannot serve. Service
Exactly.
must be done.
Hey, just listen to me. Just a second. You served her. You gave her the papers.
Yes, I did, and that is not service. Service must be a third party.
So why did you serve me?
Hey! Do I look like I need help? Do I look like I need help?
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You're really ticking me off, sir. You're really ticking me off, sir.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Donald Lake, the former educator, wants supermarket checker Shannon McConnell to pay for his trouble when he claims he was shortchanged at her supermarket.
Mr. Lake, so let me understand this, sir. You did, in fact, give her papers with regard to this first suit that she's talking about, but...
Yes, I did.
And what you're saying is that it's a question of semantics, because since you, as a party, cannot serve her, a third party must serve her. It was invalid service, and therefore she was not served.
Also, ma'am...
Am I right?
That's correct.
Good! Now,
And...
say nothing. You're really ticking me off, sir. You're really ticking me off, sir. So you didn't appear in that action because you say she wasn't served. Is that correct?
That's partially correct.
Did you appear in that action?
No, I did not.
Then I'm correct.
You're partially correct.
I'm always correct, sir. The question is, she went to court because she was given papers. She's not a lawyer. She doesn't know that if a third person doesn't serve, it's not considered good service, so she didn't want to be in default. She went to court, and you didn't.
Also, the paperwork was given to Shannon M. I was trying to find out her last name so that she could be serviced correctly.
All right, so now we have one lawsuit that you filed that you didn't follow through with, and she went. When was the next lawsuit?
The next one was 2 months later. We went again, and at that point, we found out that not only did he have my court case, he had 2 other cases in the courtroom next door. Obviously can't be in 2 courtrooms at one time, so he denied having the pro tem hear our case. So perhaps you could go to the other cases. So
Let me understand this so that I make it simple. When you showed up in court on the next court date after you were properly served, I assume, Mr. Lake, you had 3 actions pending on the same day. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you had to choose which case you would hear that day because you couldn't be in 2 courtrooms at the same time. So you said, I don't want a lay judge to hear my case. In her case, adjourn it to another day. Is that what happened?
No, ma'am.
Then let me hear.
I said I don't want a lay judge, a person who is not culpable to the Performance Review Board on any of my cases. That is a constitutional right.
And this is the 3rd case, is that correct? Are you ready?
I think so.
Are you ready?
Judge Judy is ready to rule. Real cases, real people. Judge Judy.
Mr. Lake, in the 1.5 years that I've been handling cases in this court, I have never imposed the judicial sanction of fines for abusive process, fines that have been paid to the court for wasting court time. Now, I am dismissing your lawsuit because your lawsuit is frivolous. And not only is it frivolous, but this is the 3rd time that you have abused the people of this state by taking up judicial time and manpower in filing it. There is no question that there was, based upon what I've heard, an honest mistake. You, sir, are a suer, which means you like to sue people. And maybe you get off on that, but I'm telling you right now that the judicial system in this country will not tolerate those people who abuse it, because if you abuse it, people who have a real case can't get court time because the courts are clogged with this kind of frivolous nonsense. Now, say nothing, Mr. Lake. You already said too much. Now, with regard to this lawsuit, her counterclaim, I'm awarding you. You are asking for $1,400. Right. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And I'm also going to exercise my discretion and award you $2,500.
Wow.
All right? And I am imposing sanctions, Mr. Lake, costs upon you that are to be paid to the court in the amount of $500 because you have abused me, and I resent it. Not only have you abused her, but I resent the fact that you have abused the court system. That's all.
Step out. Now, this is case number 60 on the calendar in the matter of Peters versus Peters. Judge, the parties have been sworn in. You may be seated.
Thank you. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Peters, you've been married for 6 years and you're in the process of divorcing. According to your papers, I think that you've both agreed that your marriage is going to be over, despite the fact that I get some sense in these papers that you still care about each other, that your lives are going in different directions. And you come before me today because there is certain property that you have agreed to permit me to resolve with regard to the issue of ownership. Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And once those issues of property are resolved, then the divorce process will be a relatively easy one. Right.
Yes.
Yes.
Take a deep breath. Are you nervous?
A little.
Okay. Mrs. Peters, according to your complaint, there are 3 items at issue.
Right.
There is a car.
Right, the car.
What kind of car is it?
It's a 1993 Geostorm GSI.
And then the issue of my cat and my dog, he gave my cat away. And we had decided that I would...
So there's a dog?
Yes.
Because the cat's gone?
Yes. And then also we have some videos that we...
Some personal videos that he has that you would like back?
Well, I would
like it destroyed?
Yes.
Okay. Let's start with the car, because my sense is that the car is, in the area of emotions, the easiest thing to resolve.
That's correct.
Is that right?
That's correct.
Now, the car is in your name.
Yes, ma'am.
But she pays for it.
That is correct.
How did that come about?
Because when Chris and I had moved to California together, for a while he wasn't working, and I had paid some of his car payments, just 2 of them, so that I was afraid he was going to leave me if he couldn't pay his bills and I go back to Colorado, and I didn't want him to go back, so I paid that. And then I got sick afterwards, and I got really behind on my bills, so my car got repossessed, so I ended up filing for bankruptcy.
I don't believe you paid my car payments.
Yes, I did.
Well, it's really not particularly relevant, because what we're here for is for resolution, not to revisit bad moments.
So anyway,
Does that sound right to you?
Yes.
So you had bad credit.
Yes.
But you needed a car.
Yes, Your Honor.
And you helped her.
Yes, ma'am. I told her, I says, now if I sign for this car, you have to promise me that you're going to make your payments on time and you're not going to make this a liability to me.
So you said, I'll sign for it, but promise that you'll make the payments faithfully and on time.
That's correct, Your Honor.
You don't mind if I help you out a little bit?
No, not a bit.
Because I got other cases to do today.
Thank you.
Okay. How much more time has to go on this car loan?
About a year and a half.
And how long was the car loan? 5 years?
Yes.
And you would agree, Mr. Peters, that she has made, even though some of the payments were late, she's made all the payments?
That's correct, Your Honor.
So there really isn't much of an issue about that. When you separated, you took the car.
Yes.
So
well, the issue is the collection agents keep coming to me wanting those payments because they're always late.
They are not, I'm sorry. Sorry, Your Honor, but they're not always late.
Well, I got just this notice right here that she's behind 2 payments.
I'm not behind 2 payments.
Let me ask you this question, Mr. Peters. How would you like to resolve this fairly with regard to the car? Let me see what your suggestion is.
Well, I would like to be able to sign it over in her name, but that's impossible because they won't do it because of her credit. So I think that she should at least reimburse me maybe half of what the car is worth, and that way.
How's that going to help you?
Well, my car is about ready to go.
How do you think it would be reasonable to resolve this issue? Because what you're really asking is you're asking him to sign the title of the car over to you, and yet he has the liability.
Yes, ma'am.
I've made all the payments up to now. I'm not going to stop making the payments.
Well, I know that because you're driving the car. But if you do stop making the payments, that means they're going to come after him or repossess the car.
I would never stop making the payments. Mm-hmm. I've already paid over $12,000 on that car, Your Honor. I'm not going to stop making the payments. Plus, I paid his car insurance until this year so that he could have car insurance because he didn't want to have car insurance.
That's not true. You left me with $1,500 worth of bills, and
Chris, that is so not true.
And I paid the last 2 months of your insurance.
Okay. How much is this car worth now, approximately?
$7,000.
Is that about right?
Yes, that's correct.
Do you have the last statement that you received on the car?
I just have one of the bill that's owed right here.
Can I see it, please? Well, it says this payment, you are delinquent by 1 month.
Actually, that will be true on the 26th. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to make the payment before the 26th.
Okay. Give me a minute. You still owe a lot of money on this car.
About $6,200, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
probably paid about $2,000 in overcharges by now.
No, I have not, Chris.
Wait, she's paid for a long time. I mean, you have had the car for, if she's had the car for 4 years, if she's had the car for 4 years.
But every time she's late a payment, Your Honor.
I am not every time late a payment, Chris.
Just don't fight with each other. You don't have to fight with each other anymore. You're getting a divorce. The fighting is over.
Later on Judge Judy.
Have you ever shown this video to anyone?
No, ma'am.
And you want it destroyed?
Yes, I do.
You want to keep it?
Yes, ma'am.
That's sick.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. 34-year-old Chris Peters is divorcing his wife Kelly because she won't give up her exotic dancing career. They have asked Judge Judy to arbitrate their dispute over their pets, their car, and their intimate home video.
Mr. Peters, I'm going to suggest to you that for the purposes of liability and everything else, that you sign this car over to her so that the car is in her name. You, of course, always have the recourse of suing her in a small claims arena. You don't have to go through lawyers or anything else. You know she doesn't have money now.
Yes, ma'am.
My alternatives are to force her to sell the car, satisfy your loan, and then she'd have $800 left. Because if the car is worth $7,000 and there's $6,200 left to pay on the loan, that would put her in a position of not being able to be employed, really, because she wouldn't have a way of getting back and forth to work. I assume you drive to work.
Yes, I do.
Now, you've been married for 6 years. Are you employed on a regular basis?
Yes, I am, Your Honor.
You have a weekly paycheck?
The small one.
Okay. You are not, I assume, Ms. Peters, in your divorce action seeking support from him. Is that correct?
Of course not.
Because you're working. Mm-hmm. So I want you to look at the long-term picture, Mr. Peters. This car is your insurance. Your insurance that when this whole divorce action is finalized, your wife is not going to ask for support from you because she's not working because she didn't have a car to get to work. Got it?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So what it really means is for the next year while this car loan is being paid off, you'll have to sweat it a little bit to make sure, you know, that she's going to make the car payments. You also can feel confident that after all the money she's paid, it is unlikely that she's going to allow the car to be repossessed. I'm telling you right now, if you don't make your payments, the first thing they do is come and get the car. So, Mr. Peters, you're going to sign the car over to her. That way, when your divorce is over, everything's going to be finished. Is that a good idea?
That's fine, Your Honor.
All right, good. So, that was the unemotional part of this dispute. Now, let's get to the dog. The dog's name is Breezy.
Yes.
Breezy is, according to your papers, a boxer.
Yep.
Is that a picture of Breezy?
No, this is a picture of my cat that he gave away without my permission.
Okay.
We'll get to the cat.
Yes,
Okay.
we will.
That's a picture of Breezy.
Yes, ma'am.
According to your papers, Ms. Peters, you had a cat and a dog.
Yes.
You had Mac, the cat.
Yes.
Breezy, the dog.
Right.
And why don't you tell me about the arrangement with the cat and the dog when you separated in November?
Okay. We had agreed that I would take the cat, Mac, and I would let him keep Breezy, even though I didn't really want to let him keep Breezy because she's my dog too, and I love her, and I'm the one that took care of her, paid for her food most of the time, took her to the vet, all that stuff.
You agreed that you would keep the cat and he would keep the dog.
Right, and because I can't have the cat where I'm living right now, he had promised that he would keep Mackie for me until I could get my own place. And I thought that instead of taking Mac at the time and having him stay at a friend's house or having my sister keep him, it would be less traumatic for Mac if he stayed in his own house with his own yard until I could come get him. And he looked me in the eye and promised me that he would take good care of Mac.
The same way she looked me in the eye and promised me she'd make all her payments on time.
Oh,
Mr.
God.
Peters.
I did promise and looked her in the eyes about the cat, and then I'd keep it for her. But sometimes when you get...
So what happened with the cat?
The cat kept urinating all over the house and on my clothes and stuff, and I finally...
Coming up on Judge Judy.
It was totally done just for the two of us. I've never made that kind of video with anyone ever before. And I just did it for him.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Mr. and Mrs. Christopher Peters are in the middle of a divorce, but they have come before Judge Judy to settle custody of their pets, a car, and a personal home video.
Why didn't you call your wife and say, listen, I'm giving away the cat. You want the cat, come and get it?
Because I knew that the cat needed a home, a good home, And Kelly wasn't prepared. She just left the cat. If she was so concerned about Breezy and the cat, then she should have done something before she left.
Okay.
She shouldn't have just left it up to me.
Mr. Peters, you didn't answer my question.
Why didn't I
Why
call
didn't
Kelly?
you, at that moment,
Because I was
pick up
pissed
the...
off.
Right. That's honest. There you go. Okay.
And
That's
I was
honest.
using, and I was thinking, I was thinking that, you know, it was her fault and stuff. And I was sorry. After I gave the cat away, I tried to get the cat back because I realized how much it really meant to Kelly, you know. But at the time of the anger of the moment,
okay.
I hated the cat.
That's
so.
just a second. That's honest, Mr. Peters. Shh. That's honest.
Okay.
Well, so now, Mrs. Peters, your husband acknowledges that he got rid of the cat because the cat was soiling all over the house.
But, Your Honor, it's because he didn't clean out his box.
Whatever. For whatever reason. He didn't like the cat. Maybe he looked at the cat as an extension of you. Is that a possibility?
Maybe.
He acknowledges that he was wrong. That's a step. That's not a reason for me to say that you're entitled to the dog.
And I'm sorry I gave away the cat.
Good. Did you hear that?
Yes.
I am sorry.
Because, you know, it's like he did the dog has been with him. The dog has always been with him for the last 9 months. The dog has been with him, living in a place where the dog is accustomed to living. There's a certain routine. So if I were to say, well, you gave away the cat, now I'm going to give her the dog, who I'm really punishing is this dog who had dog didn't have anything to do with getting rid of the cat. So that wouldn't be fair, would it? Mrs.
Well,
Peters, would that be fair to the dog?
No, probably
Right.
not.
You're right. It would not be fair to the dog. It's like saying if you have a child and there's a divorce, and if one parent acted badly about something, you punish that parent by saying, well, I'm going to limit your visitation with the child. Because that's punishing the child. It's not only punishing the party, but it's punishing the child for something that the child had no control over. This dog is used to living in a particular place. How old is the dog?
3 years.
So for 3 years, lived in the same place, same home, it's got a yard, whatever. Does it?
Yeah, it's got
Got a
big
yard, has a routine.
She's real happy too, Your Honor.
And there's really no reason for me to uproot the dog because he made a mistake.
Well,
Yes, I did.
He made a mistake. He apologized for it. It was not the right thing to do. So the dog stays with him.
Chris, thank you, Your Honor.
Now, the last thing that we're going to address is this video. Ms. Peters, it's your position that this was a rather intimate video that you and your husband took as husband and wife for fun, for whatever. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
And you want it destroyed.
Yes, I do.
Your position is you want to keep it.
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Well, I have a couple of questions to ask you, sir.
Okay.
Have you ever shown this video to anyone?
No, ma'am, I would never show it to anyone else.
Okay, so you want to keep this for yourself.
Yes, ma'am.
That's sick. Very sick.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
It's not as nasty or whatever that you want to think. I mean,
Your Honor, it's very graphic.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Kelly Peters, an exotic dancer, and her husband Chris Peters are divorcing. Judge Judy is deciding what happens to their intimate home video.
There is no reason that I can think of for divorced people to keep pictures, videos, photos of each other that the other party might find embarrassing.
Well, there's nothing embarrassing about it. It was just, you know, I mean, it's like, I love Callie. I'm always going to love her. And it's just, I mean, it's not as nasty or whatever that you want to think. I mean,
Your
it was
Honor, it's very graphic.
Just a second. I don't want to hear about it. I thought I was being very...
Sorry.
I thought I was being very circumspect about it. I said that there was an intimate thing done with...
I have
between
many
us.
other videos of her, too. I mean, that's not in the same category,
Well, this
but...
is what she wants. This is the one that offends you, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Bell, I'm going to say this to you one more time, sir, and listen to me very carefully. When you divorce, if you're lucky, you're left with certain pleasant memories that you try not to forget. You know, you had good times with your wife. It just so happens that in your case, after 6 years, your lives have taken a different path. She doesn't want to have to worry about these photographs, these videos, falling into anybody else's hands. God forbid you're out in a car and your car is in a wreck and you are there comatose and your mother goes through your things and she says, I wonder if these are pictures of Chris when he was out skiing. And your mother plays this video. Do you understand what I'm saying, sir? You know, it's one of the reasons why people are always supposed to wear clean underwear all the time and keep their houses neat. You never can tell what's going to happen. There are all kinds of situations that I can conceive of where even if you don't intend something to happen, this can fall into the wrong hands. Someone can burglarize your house. That's a possibility. Isn't that a possibility?
I don't think they'd find the tape.
They're certainly not going to find it, sir, because there isn't going to be a tape.
So there's nothing I can say because...
There is absolutely nothing, sir, that you can say to me that would satisfy me that there is any logical, rational basis for you maintaining anything that might prove embarrassing to her. And if she had something that might prove embarrassing to you, I can guarantee you, sir, it would be in my possession if it was the subject of this litigation, and it would be destroyed.
Do you?
No, of course I don't.
Good. Officer Byrd, you and I are going to take care of this video in the back. Okay, Mr. and Mrs. Peters, listen to me. It's resolved. This is going to be destroyed. It's going to be destroyed within the next 5 minutes. Officer Byrd and I are going to have fun. We're going to create a little bonfire in my chambers. Now, then you don't have to worry about it anymore, Mrs. Peters. So let us see how we resolve this case. The Geo.
Yes, ma'am.
Is going to be registered in your name. The dog, Breezy, sir, is yours.
Thank you.
The video is mine. This case is over. Thank you.
Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Out the back door to your right, please. Your Honor, this is number 34 on the calendar in the matter of Saunders versus Thompson. Parties have been sworn in. Judge, you may be seated.
I gather from these papers you two were engaged, going together for about 10 years. Yes. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And at some point, Mr. Saunders, according to your complaint, you went away for about 2 years.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that a euphemism for jail?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What were you incarcerated for? Because that becomes important.
Aggravated battery.
On whom? Not on her.
No, ma'am.
Was there a weapon involved?
No, ma'am.
And during the time that you were going to be away, you left the defendant your car.
Yes, ma'am.
A gun.
Yes, ma'am.
And access to your money.
Yes, ma'am.
Where was the money?
Originally, before I left, I resigned from my job. The money was somewhat about $20,000 in a K plan. And
a Florida retirement plan?
Yes, ma'am. She had the power of attorney so that she could handle the work, get the money, and handle it.
Okay. So then you come out of jail and you sue her. Not together anymore.
Yes, something like that.
Well, then let me hear the story, sir.
I came out and to retrieve, before getting out, I realized that we were no longer going to be together. I just wanted to come out and receive my property, get rid of the gun, sell it, get my Jeep, get insurance policy that she had of mine, power of attorney back, and go on with my life. Subsequently, I tried to talk with her and get her to give me these things back so that I could go on with my life. She, in turn, gave me problems. They went on for months and months. I couldn't get any of this stuff back.
Do you have your Jeep?
I eventually did get it, yeah. Now, the Jeep I got immediately, but a couple of weeks down the line, I realized that it had some problems in it. A leaning wheel. She had told me before I got out that the windshield was cracked again for the third time, you know, and I was missing a lock, computer lock that goes to a burglar alarm. That's, you know.
All right, let me get to this gun, because I think that's going to be the easiest thing to take care of. What happened to his gun?
I had been carrying the gun in the vehicle.
Why?
At the suggestion of Mr. Saunders, because I did travel every weekend back and forth a considerable distance. There was one occasion where...
Travel where?
To Illinois.
The third time.
To visit him.
And I was missing
there was an occasion where I had a blowout with the tire.
Computer lock that
Somebody
goes to a
approached the
burglar
vehicle while I was waiting for the repair service, and at that time he suggested I should keep the gun in the car for emergency situations like that.
Is that true?
No, that's not true at all. Ma'am, I've been with Kim for 10 years, a decade before I went away. Kim has never touched a gun. She was scared of them. If I had one in the wrong spot in her way, she would come get me to move it. I know that she's as awkward with a gun as she would be with an elephant.
Miss Thompson, what happened to the gun? We're going to start over again.
I was going to go visit Mr. Saunders for a family event. I knew that the vehicle would be searched, so I'd taken the gun out of the car and left it in the home of my third party.
What third party?
My witness, Mr. Hogue.
This is your new boyfriend?
Yes.
So you took the gun out of the car and gave it to him?
I did not give it to him. I put it away, and I informed him that I was going to leave the gun in a certain drawer in the house.
Why didn't you leave the gun in your house?
Because when I was on my way to visit him, I was at Mr. Hogue's house at the time, and I remembered, that gun is out there, I need to get it out. So I just came from the Jeep, put it in the house, and I informed him I'm going to leave this here while I go visit.
So on your way to visit him, you stopped at his house?
Right.
Had you told him you had a new relationship?
Yes.
Is that right?
Somewhat. I found out on getting out of jail, I found out when I got into my Jeep and opened up the glove compartment and hotel receipts fell out. That's how I found out.
Step up here, sir. Because I want to deal with the gun first. What happened? Your name?
My name's Gerald Hogue.
Mr. Hogue, what happened to his gun?
There was a disturbance at my house.
What kind of disturbance?
There was a fight between some friends. The police came. They asked were any weapons in the home. I told them yes. They seized the weapons. When I talked to Mr. Sanders about his gun, I told him where his gun was. I told him what he needed to do to get it back.
So the gun was really seized because of a problem that existed in your house with the police?
Yes.
And your gun is, you have the license and registration for your gun?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
You know that you can go to the police station and get your gun back if you can prove it's yours.
But I was told so many lies. Originally, she told me that she had the gun.
Well, she already told me one lie, but now we got to the root of it.
Yes, ma'am. But recently, I just found out that, and this is at his word, that the police and I think Jennings have the gun. I have been told so many lies that at a certain point, I stopped dealing with them. I figured I would take it to the court and let the court sort it out.
Mr. Saunders, really all you have to do is go to the police station. When the police have confiscated property, and you can identify that property and satisfy them that the property is yours, and I assume your registration for that gun says what kind of a gun it is. What kind of gun is it?
It's a Taurus 9mm.
You don't need that gun for any particular reason, sir.
No, ma'am. I don't need the gun, and as a convicted felon, I'm not allowed to have a gun. So therefore, they will not give it back to me.
Oh.
Okay.
Your Honor?
Yes.
May I say something, please?
Yes.
I did call the police to try to get the gun back. I informed them that I had power of attorney from that the gun was not Mr. Hogue's, and that I did have power of attorney plus the receipts for the gun. They told me that since I was not the registered owner, that I could not get the gun. I would have to go to court in order to do so. I had contacted a lawyer. They told me it would be $258 to get the gun. I did not feel that I should put out additional monies when Mr. Saunders still owes me money.
The reason his gun is at the police station, his property, whether it be a gun, whether it be a hat, whether it be a collection of baseball cards, is because of you.
Right.
So he has to be compensated for that. That's his property. He can't get it out because there's an impediment to it. But the reason that the gun is there is because of you. So you can become the registered owner of the gun for the limited purposes of selling it. And then he gets the money.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
She told me already 3 lies today, and we've only been together for 15 minutes. That's why.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Lawrence Saunders wants compensation from his ex-girlfriend, Kim Thompson, because her new boyfriend smashed his Jeep and lost his handgun.
What other monies do you say she owes you?
$2,600 for a wheel on my Jeep. $900.
Just a minute, $2,600 for the wheel. Why?
Well, when the car was returned to me, the wheel was leaning.
Yeah.
And it was in her possession, and I figured she owed me for it because who knows who she let drive it.
Well, Mr. Saunders.
Yes, ma'am.
When you lend somebody a car or turn a car over to them for an extended period of time, you assume that that car may be used, driven by her, driven by someone else, and you take certain risks. You're not going to get the car back in exactly the same situation as when you went in 2 years ago. You're a different person, I assume, than you were 2 years ago when you went to jail, right?
Very much so.
Very much so.
Yes, ma'am.
So's your car.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. But also, that wheel was leaning so bad that it's unsafe. I do not assume to get my property back in an unsafe condition. Also, ma'am, I'm not upset with anything that happens to my stuff in her possession. But when she lends it out to third parties, that's what I have a problem with. And third parties also who aren't honest.
Well, your arrangement with her was that she paid for the car, make the car payments while you were away, and she would have access to the car.
She agreed to pay for the payments. I also, with the money that I had that she was in possession of, said to her, if you have any problems paying for it, pay for it out of my money.
Did you use his money to pay for the car?
No, ma'am.
That's untrue, ma'am. I have paper right here stating that she did.
I may have made 3 car payments with his money.
Well, why don't you... I just asked you a question. You said no.
I'm talking about over the 2-year period. I used my money to pay for that vehicle.
Well, you were driving the vehicle. And he was driving the vehicle, right?
No, ma'am. He used the vehicle one time.
I don't believe you. I don't believe you that he used it one time, and the one time he used it, he was in an accident. Is that what you're going to tell me?
Yes, ma'am.
Baloney. Miss Thompson.
It was an ice storm.
Miss Thompson, I don't care if it was an ice storm, a tornado, or a typhoon. If you think that I believe that you only let your boyfriend use that car once, I was born in 1965.
Excuse me. I also have a copy of the report here also of the accident. It says nothing about an ice storm.
Whether it says anything about an ice storm, listen to me. She used the car, and it was your agreement that she would pay for the car.
Yes, ma'am.
Once she was using it.
Yes, ma'am.
Because you didn't have a car at the time that was
usable.
usable.
Yes, I did have a car.
Then why would you use his car?
Your Honor, in the very beginning, I only drove I did not drive his car. He asked me to drive it because the alarm vehicle was on there. He was afraid it was going to drain the battery if it just sat there.
All you have to do is put the car up on blocks and take out the battery. Isn't that right? If you're not going to use it for a long time?
I don't know anything about that.
Well,
so initially I started driving it just on the weekends. After my car went down in '96, then I started driving his car on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm. So you used it all the time?
Full time in '96.
So
But that was a full year after I had been given possession of the vehicle.
Ma'am, I gave her the car with 37,000 miles on it. I got it back with somewhat of 70,000 miles on it.
Right. Because I basically drive 150 miles a day.
I'm interested in, these are the expenses from your 401k, is that right?
That's what itemized description of what she gave me.
Who uses all these Bibles?
I was giving them out.
You were giving them out from jail, in jail?
Yes, ma'am.
He spent hundreds of dollars on Bibles to give to other inmates.
I could think of worse things. You were driving this car when it was in a bad accident, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Did the insurance cover the cost of that?
Yes, ma'am.
And what was the cost of repairs for the car?
A little over $5,000.
And how much did the insurance pay?
Everything except for $300, my deductible.
I don't see where she owes you a whole bunch of money, sir. I think she owes you for the gun.
Yeah, well,
I don't think she owes you for the car, and I'm going to get to her countersuit in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Car's a problem. You let somebody have a car, and that's what happens. I think that the 3 car payments that she took out of your 401k, if she was using the car, she has to pay you back for. If she's treating this car as her own, she's driving it, she's letting her boyfriend drive it, it doesn't seem to me that you got to pay for it. That just sounds fair.
Your Honor,
Okay, yes.
The payments that I made with his money was during the time that I was not driving the vehicle on a daily basis, only on the weekends to go visit him. So I don't see where I should be responsible for that full payment.
Why don't you drive your own car to go visit him?
Because his car was newer, he wanted me to drive his car.
That's untrue. Her car
I don't believe, Ms. Thompson, that he ever said that to you.
Her car was down.
The problem is when you tell a lie once to a court, the court tends to look at everything else that you say with a certain amount of suspicion.
Amen.
I don't believe that he ever said to you, please drive my car instead of yours, and I also don't believe that you only drove his car on the weekends if you're telling me that his car was newer than yours.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Lovers that have been together for a while can feel when the other person is drifting off.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. While Lawrence Saunders was in jail, he claims his girlfriend found a new man who damaged his Jeep and lost his gun.
I see two car payments that you made $854 out of his account.
Because it was behind.
Well, he was in jail.
Your Honor, Mr. Saunders had a habit of never paying his bills or not paying them on time.
Yeah, I have no problem with what she's showing with the money, even using my money to pay for my Jeep, okay? I didn't have a problem with that. I asked her, if it would have been up to me, I would have let the vehicle go back and controlled my money until I got back. She said, no, I'll help you, I'll do it for you, you're gonna need a vehicle when you get out, no problem. And I think she did pretty much a good job with the money.
Oh, so what are you here for? Are you just mad at her?
No, I'm not mad at her.
So
Again, my car was not, she promised me, I asked her to promise me that she wouldn't give my stuff away to a third party. Some guy, I figured that, I'm going for a while, I'm not a fool. She might be dating, she wants to date. I mean, she's a young girl. She shouldn't be strapped down with some guy that's away, okay? Go ahead, do your thing. But if you're going to take care, you gave me your word that you would take care of my stuff. If you're going to take care of my stuff, take care of my stuff. If something happens to it, that's an act of God. But if you're irresponsible and you're handing it out to people, that I don't know, you're handing it out to people who aren't above board. It's not honest. That's my opinion, but I can express it.
But you gave her permission to do that.
I gave
You expected that she might let somebody else drive the car as long as she was responsible.
No, I didn't.
You didn't?
I asked her, and she promised me that she would not.
Is that true?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. And you did. You lent it to somebody else.
I lent it to my family members to move some furniture, and I did loan it to Mr. Hogue. And
you had promised him that you wouldn't?
Yes, ma'am.
And sir, how much did it cost you to fix up the car?
I had a figure of actually around $3,700 that I lost in trading the car in.
So if he says that he lost money because the car was not driven appropriately by you, Mr. Hogue, some members of your family, and was in an accident, don't you think he should be compensated?
No.
Well, but you think that you have a counterclaim against him for what? You're countersuing him for $5,000. I'd like to hear for what?
For the monies that I paid on the Jeep. Mr. Saunders said that I could have used his money, but he didn't have enough money to cover the cost of the vehicle.
So you want him to pay you for his car that you were using while he was away?
I'm suing him for the fact that he has been, in my opinion, very dishonest about the whole transaction with the vehicle.
Why?
Because, Your Honor, he had initially told me that he was going to pay me back for keeping his vehicle.
Did you ever tell her that?
No.
I believe that you never told her.
Now, why would you believe him and not me?
Because you told me already 3 lies today, and we've only been together for 15 minutes.
And he has not told you a lie?
That's why. And because it doesn't have the ring of truth. What you're saying doesn't have the ring of truth to it. It just doesn't. And let me tell you why. Because there were times when he had plenty of money in the bank, and you didn't take the money out of his account to pay for the Jeep. And because according to his statement, which I believe, without his prior authorization, you went and refinanced this car because the payments were too high so that you could make the payments. Is that true?
No, ma'am.
You mean this car was never refinanced?
Yes, it was. I refinanced the vehicle with his credit union because it was a cheaper monthly payment and less of an interest rate.
For you to pay. And then you made the payments.
And eventually he would have had to have paid with no job. How is he going to make a $427 payment each month with no job?
Ms. Thompson, so what you're telling me is while you had a new boyfriend, you were concerned about what would happen to Mr. Saunders when he got out of jail.
Judge Judy is ready to rule.
Ms. Thompson, so what you're telling me is while you had a new boyfriend, you were concerned about what would happen to Mr. Saunders when he got out of jail.
Yes, I was.
The countersuit is dismissed. On your lawsuit, sir, this was a very good lesson for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Right? I wouldn't give my closest relative power of attorney over my money without my having the ability to co-sign for it. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Very bad idea. I am only dealing now with this gun because as far as I'm concerned with regard to the Jeep, which is now sold, she used it, she paid for it for a substantial period of time. You sold it, whatever monies that you got, you lost money, but some of the monies that you got for it were monies that she paid. It was almost like renting a car from a rental company. She had the ability to use that car for almost 2 years, so she used it. It's a wash. You owe for the gun. The gun should not have been in his house. The gun should have been where he left it, in a vault, someplace safe. Judgment in this case is for the plaintiff in the amount of $200. Thank you. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Mr. Back, go to your right, please. Judges, number 10 on the calendar in the matter of McBriar versus Golden. Parties have been sworn in, Your Honor. Be seated, please. Have a seat.
I've read your papers. Ms. McBriar, according to your complaint, you and the defendant lived together for about 4 years.
Yes.
During that time, he says he paid all the bills. Is
Yes.
that right?
That's right.
But prior to your separation, which was not a happy one, according to what I've read, she says you ran up a phone bill of about $640.
That's not true.
Well, tell me about it.
Your Honor, I have the phone bills right here. What I do, Your Honor, is every month I am on a fixed income. So every month...
What kind of fixed income?
I am on disability. I am on SSI. Okay,
What?
so every month what I do is I call the phone company and I asked one of the reps what is the amount of my phone bill before I even get it, so I'll know how much I'm going to pay out for my phone bill. So on April 17th, I got up and I called the phone company. Bernard was still in the bed, he was asleep. And I asked her the amount of my phone bill, and she told me it was $624.13.
For 1 month?
For 1 month.
Yes.
And so I was speechless. I was speechless, and I automatically just started sweating because I had never had a phone bill that big in my life, you know, and so I couldn't speak to her. I kind of just.
So what happened?
So what happened was I said, well, what made the bill $624 and you know, what made the bill this high? You know, I was actually yelling at her, you know, and so she said, well, you have quite a bit of long distance phone calls on your bill to Virginia. Most of them are to Virginia, and you have a lot of toll calls.
So she sent you a bill. You ultimately got a bill.
Yes, I did get the bill.
Would you get the bill? Thank you. So, what happened? You got this bill. He's sleeping.
He's sleeping.
You woke him up, I assume.
Yeah. Yes, I did. No.
I'm curious. How did you wake him up?
Actually, I didn't wake him up. I got off the phone with the rep, and I sat there because I didn't want to go in a rage and yell at him, like, you know, and start this big thing.
That's a good idea.
Okay, so he was coming out the bedroom when I was going to approach him, and it was in the hallway. And so I said, Bernard, I said, why did you run my phone bill up to $624?
Did you say it in that tone?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
And so he said, baby, I didn't know I did that. And so I said, well, you did.
What was the phone bill usually on a monthly basis?
Usually on a monthly basis, my phone bill runs me maybe $40, $50 at the most.
Okay. Your financial arrangement with Mr. Golden was that he paid the rent on the apartment?
He paid the rent and the utilities.
Well, the phone is a utility.
Well, the phone was not a utility. No, it was not. Because that was my phone in my name
So he paid the gas and electric and the rent. And what about the food? Who paid the food?
I bought the food.
Sometimes she did. Not all the time. She never bought food. She always claimed with accusations with different bills.
All right, I'm just trying to get some sense of the financial arrangements.
No, excuse me, Your Honor. You know I bought food. Don't you sit up here and lie and tell me I did not buy food.
No,
I bought food every month.
Madam,
Not
look
all.
at me.
I'm
Don't
sorry.
yell at him. He said that you bought some food and he bought some food.
Oh.
That's what he said.
Okay.
All right. But he paid the rent. How much was the rent?
The rent was $650. I mean $550. I'm sorry.
Okay, plus the utilities.
Plus utility, lights, and gas.
Okay, and your arrangement was whatever the overage was on this phone bill, you were
Yes.
supposed to pay for it.
Right.
Correct?
Correct.
All right. She says that you joined the psychic hotline.
No, that's not true.
Did you do that?
No.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did, Your Honor.
Order.
Excuse me, Your Honor. Yeah. Yes, he did. I have proof that he joined the psychic hotline.
Let me see it.
No, I did not.
Did you call the psychic hotline?
No, I did not. I don't know
he did.
anything
You
about
never
it. Never did.
Matter of fact,
But she has a block on her phone for 900 numbers. She has a block on her
Yes,
telephone
yes.
for all the calls that you can't
All right.
call long distance.
Did you
at all.
ever see this phone bill, Mr. Golden?
No,
Well,
Your
we're
Honor.
going to show it to you. I was curious, Ms. McBriar, about something else that I read in your complaint. Because you said during that morning when you confronted him, look at me, madam.
Yes.
During that morning, you said because you feared what he might do, you called the police on him.
Well, I called the police on him because, see, Bernard has threatened to kill me. He has threatened to kill me. He has done a lot of things. He has a domestic violence record already. And he does not like police. He told me if I ever called the police on him again that he would kill me.
Had he done anything to you before you called the police that day?
That day he hadn't done anything to me, no.
But you were afraid once you confronted him with the
Yes,
phone bill, he
I was
gonna...
afraid for my life.
Could I finish?
Yes,
we can't talk over each other.
I'm sorry, Your Honor, but
Okay.
I'm upset. I'm very upset.
All right. He said, so you called the police came, you left?
I wasn't home when the police came. I wasn't at there at all.
Had you known that she called the police?
I didn't know who she was calling on. I know she was, she just said, I'm pressing charges, as far as I know, when I was leaving the house.
What were you pressing charges for?
No, excuse me, Your Honor. You know what? He's lying, okay? He's lying.
About what?
Okay, when I called the police, they asked me, like they always do when I call the police, they asked me what was he wearing. When I was describing to them what he was wearing, he took off on his bike out the side gate. Okay. So I wouldn't describe what he was wearing.
That's not true. I was leaving anyway to make a phone call because I didn't want to use her telephone because she was already furious of me about the bill.
You didn't want to use my telephone. You always use my telephone. That's why it's $747
you
at this
you're very
time.
selfish with your phone.
But yes, I'm selfish with my phone because.
Ma'am.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
He asked God to destroy me, to not talk on the phone.
Ms. McBriar, everybody's got a wish list. That's his wish list.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Tamara McBriar wants her ex-boyfriend to pay the $600 phone bill she says he left behind when they split.
Miss McBriar,
Yes.
let me tell you what I don't understand here. Okay?
Yes.
At the start of this case, you told me that each month you called the phone company because you're on this fixed disability income.
Yes, I am, Your Honor.
What's the nature of your disability?
Panic attacks.
And how long have you been on
Since
disability?
1989.
You told me that you called the phone company each month so that you could set aside an amount of money
Yes,
for
Your
the
Honor.
phone bill. Now, these phone bills that you presented me with, so I assumed when you called, this $624 was for 1 month. But that's not true according to these phone bills. You're showing me bills for December, January, February, March, all totaling.
No, Your Honor. No, Your Honor. I'm not showing
Well,
you.
then-
No, I'm not.
Just a second. Then I have the bills for March,
You have the
which you're talking about, and the bill for March, the total bill. Trying to figure it out.
I have the March bill right here. The
Oh,
March
you didn't
10th.
hand it to me. You didn't hand me the front page of the March bill. Let me see the front page of the March bill, please.
That was never paid. Also, this
Just
was.
shh. Listen to me. I want you to look at these bills, madam. You're telling me that all the phone calls he made that are in question now are the bills for that 1 month, March and April, because you told me that you called each month before that to get your bill.
Yes, I do, Your
Well,
Honor.
then take these back. Take a look at those. Those say December and January.
Okay.
Am I correct? Am I correct?
No, they say April 10th.
No, keep reading.
April 10th.
Read the phones. Read the dates on the phone calls.
Okay, yes, the dates on the phone call. Those were the dates that the phone calls were made.
December, correct?
Yes.
January. Keep going. Keep looking.
I see December, January. Yes, I do, Your Honor.
Okay, so I assume you paid those.
No, I did not pay these.
Well, so I'm not following you. If you didn't pay those and you got those bills in December, January, February, and you didn't pay those bills, then you knew that there was an outstanding balance because your March bill is only $120.97.
Right.
It's $120.97.
Yes. That's money that I had to take and pay for Bernard because, see, when I would ask Bernard to pay the phone bill, he would tell me that he couldn't give me the money at the time because he had to pay the rent. But I would try to explain to him that I have to pay the phone bill because my phone would be disconnected.
Let me tell you what I don't understand. Those bills that I returned to you had a lot of long-distance calls, December, January, a whole bunch of long-distance calls that you have marked off as Bernard's calls.
Exactly.
You, of necessity, had to get those bills in either the end of December or the beginning of January, the beginning of February. What did you do with those bills that you got?
What did you mean what I did with that?
Did Bernard pay them or did you pay them?
I paid them.
He had all December and January. Didn't you discuss that with him?
Yes, I did.
Did he pay them?
No, he did not.
Had she discussed them with you?
No, well, the early ones in the past she had, and I gave her $100 before the month before I vacated the apartment. I gave her approximately $100 on the phone bill, contribute towards it, to make for all my calls, local or long distance. And